through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streamed, and the rockets' red glare, their bombs bursting in air, gave proofs through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, saved us and star-spangled banner yet wave. O'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Woo!
Center, right. Forward, march. Left, left. Left, right. Left. Yep.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
You may be seated. Before we begin, I would like to thank the Hightower High School JROTC, led by Major Jones, for presenting the colors. Let's give them a round of applause. Also, Hightower High School choir student Jessica Baines, who led us in our national anthem. Let's give her a hand. Finally, to our Burton Elementary students who led us in the pledges of allegiance, all of whom were chosen for their leadership and service to others. Marley Williams, Grace Collins, Kylan Wesley, Bradley Garcia, and Malik Frazier. Let's give them a hand. Thanks to all of our students for participating this evening. We appreciate you. All right, we're going to start this evening with our review items. And first up is to review the proposed board self-evaluation instrument.
You have at your table a draft of the self-evaluation instrument. The governance committee.
Do you all have it?
No?
Okay, we'll get you a copy of that real quick. My apologies.
Audible. Got to call an audible.
Very good. Do we want to come back to that, or?
Yeah, let's come back to it so that we have it in front of us, because it's lengthy. So let's skip that and go on to our proposed resolution of acknowledgement supporting the nomination of Dr. Charles Dupree as the Texas Association of School Boards 2018 Superintendent of the Year. Woo-hoo!
You haven't even nominated me yet.
Yes, we are going to nominate you. Do we have someone who's going to talk to us about this?
Thank you. In your board book, you have a copy of the resolution of acknowledgement supporting the nomination of Dr. Dupree for the Texas Association of School Boards 2018 Superintendent of the Year. The process for TASB is to not only compile a nomination form, but to also include a resolution that the board has passed indicating and directing the administration to submit the nomination. And that resolution is included for your consideration and feedback.
Do we have any questions or comments by the trustees on this item? Mrs. James. And you do have your, just so everybody knows. Go ahead.
Thank you. Well, I've reviewed the resolution, and I think it's excellent, and I think we should definitely nominate Dr. Dupree for Superintendent of the Year.
Anybody else? Mr. Rice.
Well, I would like to second that, and I think it's very well deserved. You can't win the HEB Board of the Year and then the following year be a finalist for school district of the year without good leadership. And so I think it's very well deserved. Dr. Dupree, and you might be interested to know that they invite alumni of El Tasby to serve as judges, so it's possible Mrs. James may be on there to help things along.
We have an in. It's good. Anyone else? Well, I will third that. I'm very excited about this. I was able to work on it a little bit and review it, and it was an honor to do that. And I agree with Mr. Rice. You don't get to be HEB's outstanding board unless you have a strong team of 8 and a strong leader of your district. So thank you, Dr. Dupree. We are honored to be able to do it for you. Okay, next up will be our proposed audit committee recommendation to engage Gibson Consulting Group to perform internal audit services. Mr. Rice, did you want to
I'll
start
just
this?
make a brief comment, and the staff issued the required request for qualifications. Mrs. Tasson, Mr. Burdine, and I all reviewed the proposals independently, and we arrived at not the same ranking, except for number 1, which is Gibson. And I'll be happy to answer any questions anyone might have.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. Do we have questions from the board members? Mr. Rosenthal.
I don't have a question. I think I know I've been very happy with the thoroughness of their reporting, and I like how they kind of rank things in order of importance, and I think they give good feedback, so I'm glad to see that.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenthal. Anyone else? Okay. Next up, we have the review of minutes from previous meetings. Do we have any questions on the minutes?
Well,
Ms. James.
Sorry, just to say that we don't have them in our packets yet because they haven't been fully prepared. As you recall, our regular meeting was just last week, so they weren't quite ready. So we'll get those to you right after spring break, I think is the plan.
Thank you, Mrs. James. Thank you for continuing to have our backs on that. Anyone else? Okay. Next up, we're going to review our proposed new positions for the 2018-19 fiscal year. Do we have any questions on this item?
Yes.
Mr. Rice, sorry.
Thank you, Mrs. Tasson, and mainly I have these questions for Mr. Bassett, and that is, we are looking at hiring new teachers for these schools, special for Thornton Middle School, 46 full-time equivalents being recommended, $2.5 million. And so here's my question. As I recall, Mr. Bassett, we've had 3 years of double-digit growth in our central appraisal district, 10% each year, 10%, 10%, and then 11%. And then this year, we only had 5% growth. And we know that each year, when the state prepares to send a check to us to fund us, they first look back 12 months ago, and they see, hey, Fort Bend, you had a 10% growth in your CAD appraisal district, and that resulted in, I don't know, $20 million of additional revenue. So when we write you a check, we're going to subtract $20 million from what we otherwise would have sent you. And since we had 3 years of growth, and then this year, we only had 5% growth. So now, when they're looking back, they're shorting us again at a time when it hurts us the most, because now our revenue growth is based on 5%. And we had an $18 million shortfall, as I recall. And the only way that was solved was to increase our maintenance and operation tax rate from $1.04 to $1.06. But at the same time, we lowered our debt service tax rate 4 cents. And that enabled us to accommodate that change without having an election. At the same time, the state funded us and every other school district in the state this year as if we had 7.5% growth in our CAD appraisal district. But we only had 5%, so we took a hit. And now I understand that the governor wants to put a cap on property tax values next year of 2.5%. 2.5%. So I wonder what kind of shortfall we can expect from that. And so I merely want to point that out. I know you don't have all those facts and figures right now. I know we need to hire the teachers for Thornton. If we want to open a school with teachers, we have to go ahead and approve that. But I hope that everybody out there, and don't forget Election Day is tomorrow, will understand that some of the policies being put forth by the governor are going to harm public education. When I came here tonight, and I was so proud to see all of these young people say the Pledge of Allegiance and say the Texas Pledge, and know that here we all are in a public school that is dedicated to educating every single one of our students. And Mrs. Tasson commented that we're the most diverse school district in America. And if all these young people receive a good education and graduate from high school and go on to college or the military or a technical trade, then they're going to be able to earn a living wage, which will allow them to get married, buy a house, and raise a family. And if everybody can do that, that's good for our society, because that's where the future trustees are going to come from. That's where future council members and state reps and everything, all of the other many volunteers that we need in order for our representative democracy to work. And the public school is at the heart of that. It's at the heart of it. That's why the public school is the one building in our community that represents the hopes and dreams parents have for their children to have a good life. And that can't be trifled with. And I only make these comments because I am quite concerned at some of the propositions that I hear out there being floated about. And I'm quite concerned that in our capacity as trustees, we have to vote on a balanced budget every single year. And if we don't have enough money, then unfortunately, we have to make cuts, painful cuts. Teaching is labor intensive. Man is a social animal. Man, we learn from other people. We don't learn from computers. We learn from other people who serve as mentors and guides to help us during our formative years grow into productive citizens, law-abiding citizens. And without that guidance and mentorship, I don't know what will happen. So our public schools are really America's best hope for the future. I hope everybody in the audience listening in believes that. And I hope that everybody will pay attention to what's going on in our state, in our nation. with the assault that is underway on public schools. Education costs a lot of money, but raising a family costs a lot of money. And we have to pay the freight if we're going to continue to have our representative form of democracy. And we have to support our teachers, we have to support the administration and everything that goes along with it, or we put our communities and our nation at risk. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. Do we have additional comments? Mrs. James?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Rice, for saying those things, because it's, what you say is very true. And when in Fort Bend ISD, our school district is growing, and we're adding more students every year, and so we need more spaces and more buildings, and that's what's before us tonight is, for consideration, is staffing one of the new buildings that we're building. We're in a difficult position because as the contributions from the state get pinched, but yet we have more students to educate, we have to figure out how to make that happen. So I agree with everything you said, Mr. Rice, and I think that, and I too would encourage our citizens to pay attention to what's going on. And Mr. Bassett would like the help because he would like good funding for public education to help us to balance our budget and to open Thornton Middle School fully staffed. So that being said, I would like to ask, and I see that you wrote some notes here, someone, maybe Mr. Spears did. I wanted to ask about the different positions, and I don't know that we need to go into it. Maybe I can just look this over. But it seems as if there are, some of these positions are lots of days, and I think I've kind of brought this up to you before. Not that I assume this is a standard staffing formula, I guess, for a middle school. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and thank you for providing the days and a little bit more description so that, and I'll take a look at it. I guess I think like Mr. Rice, when we look at this list and we realize it's $2.5 million, and that's not even for the teachers, that's just the others, or it includes a few teachers, I guess. It just looks like a big price tag. So thank you for providing the information, and thank you for, and I guess I'll take a look at it, and I can send you questions if we have them.
Thank you, Mrs. James. Any additional questions? Okay, next up, we're going to review the proposed purchases exceeding $50,000. First one of those is the purchase of audiovisual products and services. Do we have questions on this item? And then we also have the purchase of Adobe Creative Cloud software for education. Do we have questions on this item? Mr. Rosenthal.
Is this replacing something, or is this something we currently have and use, and we're just...
We have been using the Adobe Suite for years, sir.
So, okay, so we're just renewing the license, or...
That is correct,
Yes.
because they have a new license model, and we have to renew with the new license model as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenthal. Next up is reviewing the interlocal agreement with Spark Park School Program to fund the construction of the park facilities at Briargate Elementary School. Do we have questions on the Spark Park item? Ms. Helliger.
No, I don't have any questions, but I'm excited to see us continue with this program. I know when it started, I guess a year ago, it's been a couple years ago, we had some initial challenges at first, but so I'm glad to see this moving forward.
I am as well, and thanks to everyone involved with that. We really appreciate it. We know it's good for our students and our community. Okay, and then following that, we have consideration of the Briargate Elementary Spark Park. Do we have questions or comments about this? Mr. Rice.
My only question is, will this work be conducted under your staff's watchful eye, Mr. Perez? The construction work? So all safety measures will be followed and so forth?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. And then next up, purchases exceeding $50,000 are band and orchestra instruments, equipment, and related items. Do we have questions on this item? Okay, and next up are donations exceeding $10,000. We have Barrington Elementary PTO donated $15,000 to Wansagine Elementary to support teacher classroom setup and resources upon return to campus in school year 2018-19. That's really great. Do we have questions or comments about this, Mrs. James?
This is Barrington Elementary, but not Barrington Place.
Columbus, Ohio, correct.
They're from out of
Yes.
state. I think it would be nice if we could write a thank you note to that school like we did for the other one that was in Pennsylvania.
Yes, thank you, Mrs. James. And then next up is the Commonwealth Elementary School PTA donated an upgrade for the school's existing track, estimated value of $33,309. Do we have questions on this item? Okay, hearing none. Just for the audience's information, we get this stuff ahead of time and read through it, so we just want you to know. We get a big packet of information and we read through it, and so we come tonight just if we have questions or comments. Right, because we can't talk to each other outside of this room, an open meeting. Okay, next up, we have review the recommendation of teacher step proposal for 2018-19. Do we have questions or comments on this item? All right, now we have some bond program bid packages. You'll hear questions now. All right, hang on. First up, we're going to review construction of the 2014 bond program bid package 15A, which is the Austin High School re-roofing project. Do we have questions on the re-roofing project? Okay. Next up, we have, oh, sorry, Mrs. James. Missed it.
That's all right. I guess I was trying, I'm thumbing through the answers that you sent, but I was trying to understand this. I haven't read it, so apologize, Mr. Perez. Thank you for preparing it in advance. My question was about we were going to do roof repairs, and then we realized we shouldn't do repairs. We need to do the whole thing, or what? Could you remind me why this is coming back to us and that it's over the budget?
Yes, ma'am. The prime contractor for this project's bids for the roof came in really high. So what we did was we went ahead and pulled the roofing scope out of this project, and we went ahead and rebid it. And by doing that, we were able to get just roofing contractors to propose on it, and we're able to save a little over $400,000 from the price that the prime contractor was quoting. So they have finished their part of the work. We're doing closeout with them, and now upon approval here and issuing of a contract, then the roofing contractor will go in and do their portion of the work.
Okay, so we have, so we're not going to have two contractors on site at the same time trying to coordinate the project?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. James. Any additional questions? Now, next up is bid package number 24, which is the new security vestibules and facility upgrades at multiple campuses. And get to it. The campuses are Dulles High School, Highlands Elementary School, Lexington Creek Elementary School, and the Tech Ed Center. Do we have questions on this item? Mrs. James?
So again, Highlands Elementary is on this list, and they already have a security vestibule, or we're putting one in now? Because I didn't see it listed as part of the scope of work. It is?
It's actually what they have is they already have a vestibule, but we're installing the teller window to that vestibule. Right now, they have a vestibule, but it's truly not secure because the teller window is just an open area. This project installs the teller window.
Okay. All right, so we're finishing that up. And then we're putting a vestibule in at the Tech Ed Center, that's at Dulles. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Mr. George?
Yeah, I just have a quick question. Do we have a schedule in place how soon we will finish, especially the security vestibule installation?
Yes, sir. All of the vestibules will be finished before the start of this coming school year.
Okay, so we're going to have it ready before we go back in the fall?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. George. Next up is bid package 27, which are security vestibules and facility upgrades at Ridge Point High School, Baines Middle School, Hobson Field House, and Ronnie Davis Ag Center. Do we have questions on this item? Mrs. James?
Yes, so I noticed part of the scope of work for this project was something about a welding lab at Ridge Point High School. Which of our other high schools have welding centers? Or are we centralizing that, or what's the plan?
No, ma'am. The Tech Ed Center at Dulles and Ridge Point have one, and this is just to be able to allow them to utilize those sites on the site there, because there still will be some classes at both of those schools. The advanced classes will be at the CTE Center, but there'll still be some classes that are held at both of those schools.
So only Ridge Point is going to have the welding on campus, and the Tech Ed Center at Dulles is still going to have welding there?
Not, the Ridge Point will have welding, the Tech Ed Center at Dulles, all of that moves over to the new CTE Center.
Ms. Helliger?
So for clarification, to make sure I understand, so the welding center is going to be at Ridge Point. Will other schools be able to utilize that welding center? Why are we specifically putting that there?
It is already there. It's presently there. What we're putting in is a ventilation system.
Okay.
But it is presently there at this time.
Okay, so it made it seem like we were doing something new, but we're not doing anything new.
No, just a ventilation system to be able
Okay.
to get the fumes out.
Okay, so and we're moving the welding from Dulles to the new CTE center.
It's at the Dulles CTE.
Yeah, but to the new one though. Yeah, we're going to be moving it to the new one.
Correct.
Right, and we'll remove it from Dulles though.
Well, it'll be a new lab the Dulles one will no longer be utilized, and there'll be a new lab in the new CTE center.
Mrs. James?
Okay, well, I'm glad we're going to put a ventilation system in to make it safe for use at that high school, but I'm a little worried about the inequity between high schools if we have welding or beginning welding available at one of our high schools and not at the other ones.
Mrs. James, I'll ask staff. Deanna could not be here tonight. We had another district conflict she had to attend. Otherwise, she could have probably addressed this. Let us provide you a thorough response about what's going on regarding welding at all of our schools. just because, I mean, we're all conscious of the equity issue. So it's my understanding that this is an improvement at Ridgepoint just to support the existing program, not that they would have something other schools do not have. But let me confirm that and give you all a follow-up written response this week.
Thank you, Dr. Dupree. I would appreciate that. And part of my thinking is if we're making an effort to sort of centralize this type of instruction, then that would take a certain strategic direction. And if we are doing introductory classes at each of the campuses, then that would take a different strategic direction. So I'd appreciate understanding the full story. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. James. Any additional questions on this item? All right, next up is review the use of 2014 bond program contingency. Do we have questions from the trustees on the contingency item? Mrs. James.
I feel like I'm carrying the water tonight. The question I wrote down is that there seems to be a large number from Baines Middle School. Do we know why? I guess it's because we decided not to, is my memory correct, that we decided not to do a roof, but we were repairing it? Explain to me why we have a large source of money going into the contingency from the Baines Middle School project.
And I need to ask Caroline on that one, if I could have her just come up and answer that question.
She's here.
Ms. Pizzetti, well, you can take Dr. Sayavedra's spot.
Good evening. So the question of Baines, we had seen your original question earlier, and I thought you were talking about the additional contingency we had in there. So is your question regarding the contingency amount that we're carrying at Baines?
My question is, go ahead, you want to?
No, if you look at the contribution
You're
to
not on.
program, the contribution to program contingency
For Baines is 1.8 million. So it's excess funds from that project that went into the contingency as on a positive basis.
Yeah, I just want to, because I want to understand if there's some work that we're not doing at Baines that the community there is expecting.
It's, and so I'm looking at it, and we're talking about roof replacement. And so that is where the money is coming back.
Because we didn't replace the roof.
Correct. And so what we are addressing is the roof drains.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
We're addressing the roof drains. The roof drains need to be replaced, but not the entire roof.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, next up, we have a resale property owned by the district and resale of property owned by district and trust. So we had an offer to purchase property held in trust by the district. Do we have questions on this item? And then we have two offers to purchase tax resale property owned by the district and trust. Do we have questions on that item? Okay. Next up, we have purchases exceeding $50,000. So we have temporary building relocation and refurbishment. Do we have questions on the T buildings? Mr. Burdine.
Yes, ma'am. I was going to ask Mr. Perez to not talk about this for a minute, but just if you could make a few comments about this item. The refurbishment of, just the refurbishment of the T buildings.
Yes, sir. What's included in this item is that as we move T-buildings now, we're wanting to go ahead and standardize the color and make sure they're in good repair when they get there. We want to make sure that, as you drive around the campuses and you see T-buildings, that they're going to all, look the same. Right now, when you go by, you'll see some of the buildings that, or be one color, another will be another color. Some will have skirting, some won't have skirting. So we're including dollars in here to go ahead and standardize as we make these moves, from campus to campus, so that eventually we can have them all looking the same.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Perez. Mr. Rosenthal?
Can we actually paint them so they actually look nice instead of that drab brown beige? I mean, it'd be really nice to just make them look alive, not just, because they are kind of ugly when you drive by them.
We have a lot of great art students. Maybe they could paint them for us.
Well, put some murals or something, but at
Exactly.
least let's pick a color that's kind of nice. I mean, it just kind of livens the place up a little bit,
Good idea.
I would love to see that.
Good idea, Mr.
Yeah.
Rosenthal.
Yeah.
We'll get on that.
I mean, as long as we're going to be repainting stuff and doing that anyway, I mean, why not make them look nice?
Well, there is some element there, I believe, too, that they need to be energy efficient and they don't want to be too dark
Yeah.
because they are thin, so they've got to be a little bit lighter and we don't want them white, so.
No, I don't want them white either, so.
I think there's plenty of colors in the crayon box that we could come up with when it comes to painting those portables.
Let's just work on being
maybe
uniform.
we're a little in the weeds now, guys. Just a little bit. Okay, travel agency services. We have questions on the procurement of travel agency services for our students. I assume this is for our student travel. Questions? No? No? Okay. We're going to go back up to the top of the agenda and now discuss the proposed board self-evaluation instrument. Did we have a presentation on this? Yeah. So far.
You have the sample in front of you. The Board Governance Committee met, and the goal was to align the board self-evaluation instrument to the framework of the School Board Development Board Policy, BBD exhibit. We're going to pull that up for you so you can see it as well. You'll see that the committee divided the instrument into two sections. That's the copy that you have in front of you. The first section is board governance, and the second is objectives and evaluation metrics. This format will look very similar to what you're used to seeing with the superintendent's evaluation instrument, and we've included a draft for comments and feedback. And if you'll see on page 1 there that we've got pulled up, you can see the board policy BBD exhibit outlines the framework for school board development, which includes the vision, structure, accountability, advocacy, and unity. And those are the categories that this instrument is now organized into.
Thank you, Ms. Ofer. Do we have questions on or comments on the self-evaluation instrument? Mr. Rosenthal?
What are the major changes? I mean, for the most part, it looks pretty similar to what we've been doing, so.
No, not at all. It looks like the superintendent's evaluation that we adopted a couple months ago, but very different from what we typically had. Yeah,
okay.
So that's what you're recognizing.
That's what I'm seeing.
It looks like
Yeah,
the super.
'cause that's the one
So
we
what
did
we did
recently, so, yeah.
was we took it and changed it and tried to align it as much as you can align them.
Yeah, because that's the one we did recently, so that's what's in my mind, yeah, okay.
Mrs. James?
Well, I want to thank the governance committee for working on this. I really like how you guys put it together, and I like that it's very clean. I like that it's aligned to the superintendent's evaluation. I like that it's aligned to the board goals. I think it's really good. I have one suggestion for a change. Having just gone to training on Senate Bill 1566 with Mr. Rice, the evaluation metric that you have phrased there with the word accountable, The state is really emphasizing student performance and student outcomes. So I'd like to suggest that we insert something like, and change that sentence to something.
Oh, you're talking about objective 2, number 3. Okay, I just want to make sure I was on the same page as you.
All of the evaluation metrics are written with the same phrase, except the ending is specific to the objective that we're evaluating. So the third evaluation metric is focused around the word accountable. And I'd like to suggest that we say something like, the board sets measurable student outcomes so as to be accountable for, in this case, in the first one, the oversight of closing student achievement gaps, and then all the different objectives are listed. It just provides some measurability, I guess, and we've tried to do that in setting up the superintendent's evaluation instrument, but I think it would be good to have it in our self-evaluation to be sure that we're setting up something around measurable student outcomes.
Yes, I like that. Mr. Rosenthal? Oh, sorry. I don't think you, Jason, you're not. No.
Oh.
That was from last time.
Okay, yeah, I would agree, because that, the word accountable, it's not really an action, So I think what you suggested is better, so.
Any other comments? I like it too. I like that change. Thank you, Mrs. James.
Thank you for doing most of the work.
Okay, that completes our agenda review for this evening. For those of you in the audience, for those of you in the audience who are not normally with us, this is extremely rare that we have an agenda this short. We are going to convene in closed session in just a moment to conduct the superintendent's formative evaluation that we had to reschedule. So that's part of the reason, but I just wanted to let everyone know that this is not typical for us to be at 6:45 done with the agenda review. And those of you, Dr. Sincere, who have been here for all of them, know that this is not typical. Mrs. James, you had something else?
I just wanted to offer one more comment on the board self-evaluation for the board to consider, and that is, I'm wondering if we might want to circulate this and get some 360 feedback. In other words, we've typically circulated amongst ourselves and then had a conversation about it, but I wonder if we might be at a point where we could get a little broader feedback.
And by 360, you mean who should weigh in? And the reason I'm asking the question is because we have the governance committee that now includes some Dr. Dupree and administrators weighing in as well. But did you want to take it broader than that? Or was that what you're suggesting?
Well, I'm just saying, when we actually complete the survey,
final, okay,
I would suggest maybe the folks sitting around this table. I mean, obviously, Dr. Dupree would have to. I'd like to have him think about it, but I just think it would be good feedback to get just more opinions on because the purpose is continuous improvement, and the more folks we have weighing in on how we're doing, the better feel we can get for how we can improve, which is the purpose of the self-evaluation. So.
If you have to remove the word self, if you did that.
Okay, then it's an evaluation, right? It could be easily done in a Survey Monkey or something that could go out. That's all I'm saying. So that's just food for thought.
Thank you, Mrs. James. Any other? Okay, we are now going to have audience response to agenda review items. Is Benita Billing in the audience?
Ms. Billing, your comment is not on our agenda this evening, but our staff is more than willing to speak with you if you will. Dr. Dupree is here, and they can talk to you. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Do we have any other audience members who would like to comment to any of the items that were on our agenda this evening? Okay, thank you all for being here. We are now going to convene in closed session under the Texas Open Meeting Act, Chapter 551, and those sections listed in the agenda, and for the purpose of a private consultation with the board's attorney on any or all subjects or matters authorized by law. We are now convened in closed session.